I might actually pick up the computer and show everybody. Be fun.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Thursday, so it must be with me, Thomas Hampson, and we're IDAGIO Live, where classic music happens. Now, this is kind of crazy. I mean, for the last 3 weeks, I've been in different places and kind of bouncing around for you all, sort of live here and live there. We are in Oslo, Norway, and sitting next to me is round two with the remarkable Klaus Mäkelä. We, in fact, had a rehearsal about 2 hours ago, but you had a longer rehearsal. I just sang a couple of songs. We're having a concert tonight, and we thought it was just too much fun not to have a further conversation and talk about the concert and talk about Oslo, which Mr. Mäkelä is making. I guess tonight's your debut, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Today is that.
Klaus is the new music director. It sounds like an appointment for life, but it's only 7 years. With this remarkable orchestra, and tonight is the annual outdoor concert, which it will be outdoors, but without anybody there, which is kind of strange. But we're going to film it, or Norwegian television is filming it, which is very exciting for them. And we are finishing up the final touches to make this a global concert hall concert, probably in September sometime. So anyway, this is, as we say in German, live dabei, and we're glad to welcome you. Klaus, how do you feel tonight? I mean, this is your first, and next week you have a set of concerts, and there's a lot of buzz and excitement in the air. The orchestra, I can't believe they haven't been playing for 3 months. They just sound right there. Is it an exciting time for you?
I mean, it's such an exciting time, and thank you again for coming. It's of course also very personally important to me that we have great colleague and friend also being
Great
part
fun.
of the first concert of mine. Yeah, I mean, it's great, and since the orchestra hasn't been playing for many months, it was of course this has even a more special meaning since it's the start of a new story, and feels just great. The orchestra is absolutely on fire.
And my impression is the program, I mean, I only sing a couple of, well, only. By the way, this was originally, it was always been an invitation from Klaus to come up and do this concert, but the travel restrictions made it impossible. And so I had to give up the concert. And then on Monday, my colleague who was going to come fell ill. And by that time, the travel restrictions had been lightened. So they called up and said, any chance you can possibly come? And I said, I'm on the next plane. So this is also very exciting for me. I've been wanting to sing with the Oslo Phil for some time. And you and I established such a wonderful friendship last summer in Turku. But tonight, typically outside concerts are quite a bouquet. So why don't you run us through what is the program tonight and some of the highlights?
Actually, the program is very interesting. So we will be starting with Norwegian music, the Festival Polonaise by Johan Svendsen, who also used to conduct the orchestra here, but a century ago. And then actually we'll go into the Mahler songs.
That's right, we'll do the Mahler.
And we'll do 3 Mahler songs.
Right. We do Rheinlegenden, Schildwache Nachtlied, and the magnificent Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen.
And then when we end with the Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen, we go to the Swan of Tornla by Jean Sibelius, which is also one of these very, very special pieces with the most wonderful atmosphere. After that, we play another piece of Sibelius, maybe the most famous, Finlandia.
That is so exciting. Yeah, I heard that. I mean,
and then we do also some other Norwegian music by Brian. And then Vilde Frang, a great Norwegian violin player, is playing Saint-Saëns Havanaise. And then we end the evening with Firebird 1919 Suite by Igor Stravinsky. So actually it will be quite a range of, and we'll also, actually the most important, I almost forgot, we have a new piece, a world premiere by Mette Henriette, a very, very interesting Norwegian young composer. And it will be a 5-minute, and we'll be premiering it tonight for an orchestra. And
did you commission the piece?
We did.
Fantastic.
And it will be really exciting. Yeah.
Well, it's been fun to be up here for a couple of days and feel the exciting. It feels like a new life is coming in. I mean, the Oslo Phil has such a wonderful history, and the changing of music directors is already quite a celebratory moment. And they've had just nothing but the best of the best. So you're getting into a Rolls Royce, as it were. I mean, as I told the orchestra the other day, that that I have so many recordings of Maris and Oslo back in the day, and I say the orchestra has been in my car for 15 or 20 years. So it's fun to finally stand in front of them. Now, I wish I could show. Let me just turn this, see, just to actually prove to you all. This is my room, and this is the view out the window. That is the bay in Oslo. Now, what you can't see is around the corner from there, water, and to the right is a long harbor, and we're actually out on the harbor. And I don't think I'm saying too much or saying something confidential, but this place where we're playing is projected to be possibly, we hope, a new concert hall.
Exactly. And also, I mean, it has a very special meaning to us to play it in this place, because usually the outdoor concert is played in front of the castle.
All right.
Which is a beautiful place, and it can gather. Last year they had 20,000 people seeing the concert, and now this year we played in a special place, exactly in the place where we will hopefully very soon, at least hopefully, get it, the concert hall, which Oslo City has been really craving for since the last decades.
But the city has been incredibly industrious. I mean, there's this enormous new National Gallery that just surrounds the Oslo, the Nobel Peace Prize hall, and they're building a new Munch Gallery as well.
Exactly. So there's a lot of interesting things going on in the cultural field, and especially, I mean, already starting with the Oslo Opera House, which is maybe one of the most famous and important Scandinavian buildings.
It's incredible. I sang a recital there, I think the first year that it was opened, the second year. It's absolutely beautiful,
it's gorgeous,
wonderful acoustic, wonderful organization. They've of course been closed as well. I'm sure everybody's hoping to get up. So, you know, IDAGIO Live may be the place where classical music happens, but I can tell you, Oslo, Norway, is a place where classical music and the arts are very much alive and well, which is extremely exciting. It's a beautiful city. It's been fun to be here in good weather. I've been here a couple of times, but have you been here a lot before?
Well, actually, sometimes yes, of course, but now after this I'll be for quite intensively, and also after this week I'll be staying for 1 month. So next week we play Mäkelä, the first symphony, and then a Finnish composer's premiere.
Wonderful.
And then after that, Sibelius 6th and 7th, and another new piece by Lotte Vennakoski. And then after that we do Mozart and Wiedmann and Caroline Shaw and lots of things.
Is it your plan to have a lot of commissioned works?
It is, and I think it's very important.
Like 2 or 3 a year.
Definitely. I mean, at least, and I think it's important because we always played new music, and the orchestras always played new music, and then suddenly we play only old. And I think it's important to play the classics, and that's also what we need to have this relationship with the audience. So of course the classics are important, but we can present such a range of different kind of music, and I think it's also quite a lot my responsibility.
Good for you. Now, we talked in May, and we talked about where you came from. We talked about education, all that, but actually, your life has just hit yet another gear since May. I mean, how are you balancing all these things? You, admittedly, it's in the future, but you're with the Paris. What is it, Paris Orchestra?
Yeah, Auguste de Paris. Yeah,
Auguste de Paris. And you're the new music director designate there, starting in 22, but you're already working on repertoire and so forth.
I mean, I've been the artistic advisor. Yeah.
And flying is still not the easiest thing to do. I had a rather painless flight up from Austria, but it is a completely different world flying right now than it was. My goodness me, very austere and I could say unfriendly, but it's not uncordial. It's just everybody's terribly masked and private and controlled and so forth. So flying is different, but getting flights is not easy. But I suppose you can balance your schedule. What about study time?
I think that's important. And of course, now during Corona times, I was spending many months at home and started doing first concerts in June and July. And it was the perfect time to of course, I mean, you cannot say it was an easy time, since of course when it all started in Finland, where I was then in March, of course you didn't see it going really to a good direction. So of course every day you were studying, but of course you couldn't use your full energy to study for 100%. But I think it was very productive, and I was using it. I studied at least a couple, maybe 20 new pieces, and visiting of course the old pieces. And I think of course the most important thing is for a conductor to always know your repertoire, and there is no way that you could go with almost enough preparation. So that's of course the thing that the most important, of course, our schedule, concert schedule, but we usually know many years in advance. what we play. And also, of course, for me, it's planning now for the Oslo Orchestra, but also for the Paris Orchestra. So I divide very much what I do there, what I do here, and then I can plan in advance what I'm going to do, which kind of symphony cycles, which new pieces, which commissions. And then when you have everything planned in advance, you don't feel in a hurry, but actually you feel fine, and that's the most important thing.
That's a wonderful sentence. You don't feel in a hurry. There's nothing worse than sort of, oh my God, in 2 weeks I haven't opened the book yet.
Exactly. When is your next new role or commission? When is that coming?
Well, my next, I have a big revival of South Pole, which is the Norway with the Amundsen and Scott story in Munich in November. And I'm knocking on wood because they have not canceled. I think they're quite intent on doing it. And in fact, just across the way is the Fram Museum, which is where Amundsen's boat is. And if I may digress for a moment, if you have to think about this boat, and if you go to the museum is built around this boat, and it's a big boat, but it's not a big boat. And if you think of this, this rather sacred hull, and Fram, by the way, means in Norwegian forward, which I think is wonderful. But this boat in its day, 1911, had gone more north than any other boat ever. And then Amundsen took it more south than any other boat ever. So, I mean, it's extraordinary to actually stand next to this. You want to talk to it and sort of, pet it. But it's kind of amazing. Well, it's not kind of amazing. It's simply astounding what these explorers did at the turn of the century. And Amundsen is great. The next new role that I'm studying already is Così fan tutte, Don Alfonso, in Maggio Musicale, premiering in March. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It's going to be quite fun. I've sang, of course, a lot of Guglielmo's, and I recorded Don Alfonso, but I've never done the character on stage. And I must say, I've always enjoyed Don Alfonso. And
who's conducting that?
Zubin Mehta. Can you imagine? It's just absolutely wonderful. Zubin had such health scare and had us also, concerned. And apparently his doctor looked at him one day and said, Zubin, I cannot explain it. You are well. Isn't that marvelous? Amazing. It's incredible. It's so it'll be fun to do that. So that's my schedule is a little bit, it's not so relaxed, but you starting up with Oslo and your schedule, and I wish you the security of that. Most of us in the solo world are just waiting for things to sort of become possible again. And I had a big Asian tour that got canceled, so I don't know, I'm not sure what will happen. I'm glad to be here. That's fantastic. But are you going to be are you confident that October and November and December will have a secure schedule?
It's very difficult to predict, of course, what will happen, since, of course, Europe is very much waiting for the big second wave, and I don't want to sort of also be cursing beforehand. But so far, many of the weeks coming up, like, for example, Concertgebouw in Amsterdam or Frankfurt and many others after that, we have already changed or slightly adapted the program.
Right.
So nowadays, actually almost everywhere, it's 1 hour concerts without interval.
All right.
So there is always something we have to change and usually leave out. But there are also
a digital component.
Yes, as well. Usually it's been streamed, but now, of course, many of the orchestras are also, because the spring was time for free streaming. But of course, now it cannot last forever, that everything is just being streamed for free. But of course, in this case, I mean, it depends on the country. Sometimes the orchestra can be huge. We can play, for example, here will be next week Mahler 1, the first symphony in its complete orchestration, with all of the 16 first violins and everything.
How fantastic.
Yeah, and also now we are playing with the full orchestra, and it feels great, of course, and we also hope that everybody is healthy, but the orchestra has taken very carefully in all of the measurements.
I did find it a little bit strange yesterday, and I hope I'm not getting into trouble here, but everybody sat. I mean, I just did an orchestra concert on the weekend, and they were spaced in Austria.
Exactly.
But our rehearsal yesterday in the Oslo Philharmonic Hall, everybody was there as usual. And tonight, they will be there as usual on stage. But the public can't be.
Exactly.
And yet the trains are full, the trams are full. people are walking around. I see a lot of people getting onto ferries and going and so forth. But so I understand some of the people's confusion, and I understand some of the pushback in the arts community, because the arts community does seem to be being very strictly regulated.
Exactly.
And you have to ask yourself the logic to it.
It is, and every time you get on a plane or you go actually to a restaurant, for example, it can be sold to full house, and then we think about the next months or next weeks of having a very limited audience and all of that.
And yeah, I mean, it's the sports world as well. We have to be obviously fair about it. It's about all sorts of presenters and so forth. But it seems that, I mean, one obviously accepts that we have to be very careful. And I wish I saw actually people with more masks on.
Yeah, I wish too. I wish too. Really.
I mean, it's just a civility that I think one can offer. As you say, whether there's a second wave, I mean, our doctors in America, Dr. Fauci said, I'm not concerned about the second wave. We're too busy with the first one, but America's in a particularly bad place.
It's very different.
I don't know. Well, we'll have to see. But your concerts here, or your concert schedule, your guesting schedule, whether or not or how many people are allowed, more concerts are happening than not. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I think
from your schedule.
And actually, I don't. For example, for the autumn season, I actually don't have any concerts cancelled, but all just changed. So, for example, in Frankfurt, we were supposed to do with local Hessische Rundfunk orchestra, Sibelius, Jimmy Lopez, all of that, but we had to. There we couldn't do the full program.
Right.
So now we changed it, for example, Shostakovich to 14th.
Okay.
Which will be, of course, for a much smaller orchestra. Or then the Concertgebouw, we dropped also some bigger pieces and changed a little bit smaller orchestration. So that's quite a lot of future. And of course, we will see in Oslo what will happen, what we're allowed to do. And of course, that's most important, because of course we want that everybody is healthy. And in this case, also for these concerts this week and the following weeks, the orchestra has been very in close connections with all of the important people to make sure that we do everything right. And because that's of course our responsibility as well. We don't want anybody to get ill.
And next week, public will be in the hall?
Yes, next week, public.
But now, space probably.
Spaced out, and of course, I mean, there will be, a lot fewer people in the audience. And I don't know the exact number, actually, to be honest. But it's clearly less than usual. But I mean,
it depends on how strict they are. It's very strange to see, this meter thing. So it's sort of one empty, one, and then behind empty, and then one. I mean, it becomes quite elaborate, the spacing, but we'll have to see.
But it's interesting. I mean, of course, the big question is how much the atmosphere changes when there is fewer people in the hall. And I remember my first concert now with the live audience after Corona was in Gasteig in München. We had 100 people. In a huge Gasteig, which gets like 2,400 people, but it felt great. And I mean, of course, it's not the same as usual with the sold out, but there is still the atmosphere, and I think it's about quality, not the quantity of people.
What about your chamber music?
Actually, that would be good. Of course, here we're having a chamber music festival.
Are you playing?
I am playing, but that's in spring. That's in spring.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Good for me, but I'm not good for others. That I'm not sure about.
I've heard rumors. I've not heard you play, but I've heard rumors that it's actually quite good.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated.
That's fantastic. And your wife is also a cellist.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sorry, your girlfriend.
Yeah, she's the real good cellist from us.
She's the really good cellist.
She's the real good. Yeah. I'm just that.
That's right. Never mind. So do you have any plans of playing a cello concerto with the orchestra? Playing it?
Here, of course, there are always some small things we could do, but I think there are so many great cellists.
You're being modest. But have you ever played the Don Juan?
Don Quixote. That I didn't do.
Oh, the Don Quixote.
Yeah. But I did a couple of Brahms double concerts you can do without conductor, Rococo variations, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, of course, also Haydn's. Dvorak is difficult because of the distance. It's quite a big orchestration, so that will be a trouble. But that I should not try. But that I played with a conductor, last with Sakari Orama actually, which was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Yeah. Are you? I mean, I don't mean to be patronizing, but you're not exactly old yet. So when you're studying and you're planning your repertoire,
Yeah.
it must be a pretty, I mean, you've studied and prepared for so long. So these things, it's unfair to say they're new, but they are new, you know. But have you had any discoveries where you just thought, wow, I had no idea this would be so fun to do or so beautiful to do?
I mean, there are always discoveries, and I think
Mm.
that's the greatest
Mm.
part of the job, because the repertoire is just, it's unlimited.
It's
And if
incredible.
you compare for the cello, for example, we have great concerti, but not too many. But for a conductor, you can access almost anything. And I mean, now I'm just late in the last weeks, I suddenly found the oratorios of Haydn. Of course, I mean, I have known they exist and all that, but now I sort of started really like, oh, what is this? And I don't have any really concrete plans of doing them, but I thought that this is such interesting music.
It's
I
just
should
incredible.
touch it.
Yeah. I can understand
Yeah.
that. The obviously understand it, but you're very passionate about Sibelius,
Of course.
and that's going to be one of your first sort of cycles here over the next couple of years.
Exactly.
Right.
And that would be very, very interesting, because the orchestra, they have their Sibelius tradition.
Right.
Sibelius used to conduct this orchestra, not many
Wow.
times, but still, I mean, there
Wow.
is, and an orchestra tradition goes on. Every musician replaced one by one, and the tradition is being always kept going. But it's interesting because, of course, that music is very much part of their soul, and also, of course, mine. So when we put these together, I think it will be, I hope, something to worth listening.
Will we be hearing some pieces that are very seldom played?
Yes, as well, of course. And Sibelius has quite a big repertoire, so to say, even though the last 30 years of his life he didn't really compose. But there are lots of things. But of course, the main.
Say that again. The last 30 years of his life.
Yeah,
he didn't compose much.
So interesting is that he
That's
died.
amazing.
Yeah, he died 57, and some of his last important works were at the end of the 20s and very early 30s. So the last symphonies, the Seventh Symphony was 24, and then the other great pieces, Tapiola, much later, sort of late 20s. But after that, he had a very strong self-criticism.
Yeah.
So that was one problem. Then he was also getting older. His hands were shaking, which you can already see from the autographs of already the Sixth and the Seventh Symphony. So there are many reasons. And he was all the time composing the Eighth Symphony. And there are still drafts. But then apparently in the 40s, he burned many scores. His wife remembered that one day he was burning a lot of sheet music. So it was too difficult for him to let it, because he was all the time listening on the radio to new music, and he was very well aware of what is happening in the world and which kind of music is being composed. And he was always sort of course, his very own style, but it was always the Fifth Symphony reaction to the European modernism, and then going to the more classical 20s, Sixth and the Seventh Symphony. It was very much also music of its time. But then I think he just had to stop. He said, "This is enough."
This is such a wonderful orchestra, and they have such a wide repertoire. But what would you say until now is the repertoire that they're most famous for, or that they feel the most comfortable in?
I think it comes very much from the Maris era. All of this I would say Russian repertoire, and then also very, very important Germanic repertoire. That's their soul.
Russian, also perhaps Russian that were not so like Glazunov and these boys, or just Tchaikovsky?
I think very much Tchaikovsky, but also Shostakovich, Prokofiev, and all of this, which in a way is core of their repertoire, but also all of the important Germanic repertoire, Brahms and many others. So I think they can play anything.
They really can.
Yeah.
It's a very fun project. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not gonna spend a lot of time because we have cars coming to take us to our performance.
Yeah.
Now the Global Concert Hall is what I call the third rail of performance. We've all, because of the COVID crisis, have had a forced but actually healthy awareness now to the digital possibilities, the digital universe, this things that we're doing here, interviews being available, but also performing. And as Klaus was saying, there's been a great deal of streaming, but how can we actually make the concert life for us and for you more viable, more participatory? And that's where Global Concert Hall of IDAGIO comes in, because it is first and foremost produced for whomever may physically be in the hall when we do it, but also for the digital public that we know is going to be watching. Most of them are actually in real time, live events. They live on the net for 24 hours and it is a paywall. So you pay to participate in the concert. You get to visit with the artists. You get a green room, as it were, where the artist after the performance comes and talks, and you can write in questions. It is an interactive part of it. Like I said, most of the concerts on the Global Concert Hall are in fact live events, and in this paywall, you have 24 hours to view it, and then it's gone. It doesn't stay in a library. It's not like some of the other streaming platforms. And this paywall is extremely accessible in its price for people. It's usually just a blanket price, and we've gotten an awful lot of feedback that people feel good about participating in the presentation of a concert. I mean, the streaming is great, and there's been a great deal of necessary free streaming, but actually moving forward as we start getting concerts back on track and halls back in force, this module that IDAGIO came up with, I think, is very healthy and very exciting. And when we have to, again, the decision was made very late, but it's just about lockdown for a concert like this. And it is being produced by Norwegian television. So we have really high quality tapes, and we can simply make that an event. If you and I happen to be in the same zip code, we can have a live chat. We're going to do some of that tonight behind the stage as well. Anyway, so that's kind of fun. You know, I don't know how you feel about it, but because you're coming into this whole industry, and you know, your progression is completely different than mine, but there is, with all of the crises, a certain possibility thinking that is very much there, getting out of the box. The digital possibilities are easier and more profitable and less expensive than they have been previously. I think I have the feeling we're going to get through this. It's going to have an effect on repertoire. It's going to have an effect on programming, and it's going to be some time before we're going to have full audiences again. I mean, we can't expect people to just snap their fingers and feel comfortable sitting next to someone they don't know in a concert hall. You know, vaccines will help and all of that, but and until travel settles down, I think a lot of organizations are deeply focused on their public, and their publics, like Oslo. Oslo has, without question, we were talking to the directors last night, a new heightened awareness of their own symphony and their own symphony schedule. So maybe there are some very positive things to see about the development. I mean, you're about to take over two big organizations. Are you thinking along these lines, and how else we can do things?
I think this is very important. And of course, in the middle of all of this crisis, we also have to take advantage of some of the opportunities. And this is also one very good example to have this more participatory event also for the audience, since our job is always to think about what we could do for the audience, since that's our most important relation, that we performance to the audience, and how we could develop that. And this is one very good example of how we can get, in a way, in touch. And I think it might be a very, very interesting thing also in the future to develop doing this more and more.
Exactly. And I don't think what we're doing here with IDAGIO is going to go away. I think it's a new dimension. Now, again, you have to say that all digital events are not the same as the live performance.
No.
You know, and that's just the way it is. But that's been since televised opera in the late 70s and on through, and even recordings and all of that. These are all augmentations. They keep the repertoire alive. They preserve moments, but it really is about being there and sharing that story and having that oasis of a moment as a public, to simply go inside of yourself and explore what your worldview is. I mean, to me, that's one of the greatest powers of classical music. It's always about something, and it's about something that you, as the listener, get to decide for yourself. You and I work very hard to get all the details, and we make things. We want Mahler to be absolute 100% Mahler. But what the person hears and what does for that is their business. You know what I mean? Does it feel like that to you?
I think it's perfectly said.
I feel like I'm preaching a little bit.
No, you are not. It's exactly how it should be.
Yeah, it's just I'm so passionate that people don't see classical music performances coming back online as a yet another opportunity for distraction. I think there's a more fundamental reason for why classical music exists. The canon of classical music is the story of us. We wouldn't have it if we didn't have such a birth of individual freedom at the beginning of the 19th century into the 18th century. The idea that it's elitist is just completely ridiculous. It's the book of us. I should copyright that. The book of us, the classical music. But what I really wanted to say was, I want to ask you. You said you've been doing some concerts, and I've done a couple of concerts as well. My feeling is you can just feel the audience, even if it's repertoire they know, or if you sung it to, you can just feel people. Oh, I hadn't thought about. Oh, it's been so long since I've heard that. Oh, I mean, the concentration, the energy. Is this for you too?
It is exactly the same.
Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Can you feel it up on the podium?
Definitely, and you can, always feel the support and encouragement from your back, even though you don't see the audience when you conduct. It's that both the audience and the orchestra, because when you see these orchestra players who come back to work and they're craving for the repertoire and to get to play with each other, and that's just the emotional encouragement from that. Then in the performance, it's enormous.
Well, we can hope. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a short visit. We're glad to have joined the two of us together again.
The invitation.
Exactly, and thank you, Adagio, for making it possible. We need to get our clothes and get into a car and go have a concert, and we hope that you will see this concert sometime in September or October. I'm not sure what they're planning for, but I'm quite sure it's going to be coming to you in the Adagio cosmos. Anyway, from Oslo, there was an education software, or I think it still is, called Where in the World is Carmen Miranda? And it's sort of for kids to learn geography. And I feel a little bit like, I don't know where I'm going to be next week. I was like, where in the world is Tom now? I mean, and I kind of like it. It's kind of fun. So I'll be back on your screen, but Lord knows in what country or city next week. And it's great fun. Thank you for joining. Have a great life. Listen to music. Go to Idagio. Find a new composer.